Hello, my name is Carl Surrey and this is a video tutorial for two Facebook groups, fans of Serif software and Affinity designer and photo group. Now, this is an update of a Photoshop adaptation that I did back in October 2015. That was a written tutorial I did for Serif's PC photo editing program called Photo Plus. Now Serif have moved on to Affinity Photo. I want to update that tutorial, and this tutorial is about adding a reflection to a pair of sunglasses. Now I do freely admit that this image which I'm going to use here, which I got from Pixabay.com, is not necessarily the perfect image in the respect of the reflection that we're going to put in the sunglasses wouldn't necessarily fit with where this lady is standing, because obviously she's in the studio or just against the wall or something, so it's unlikely that what she is looking at in real life would be reflected in the glasses, but that is part of the whole point of this video, is to add a reflection to the sunglasses that was never there to start with. So in that respect this does work. Now I have done two attempts so far. The first one was this one, which was where I added a black and white image of Walton Pier from where I live, which I think worked quite well. I then tried a colour image which was of some flowers. Now unfortunately these yellow flowers here do look like eyes, so it's probably an unfortunate image for me to have picked to try in this reflection, but it does show that how this would look with a colour image. And what I'm going to try in this particular video is this image of a tiger, which I believe I got from Pixabay.com, but it was a long time ago and I really can't remember. But I will add the link to this particular image if you want to use this as your test when you try, or you can use your own images. And as we're now in the middle of summer here in England, this is a good time to have a look at using this tutorial to change your photographs with sunglasses in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in as close as I can get to the sunglasses. So roughly about there. Right, now what we need to do is to make a selection of the glass itself. Now in the original Photoshop tutorial, and what I'm going to use here, is I'm going to use the freehand selection tool, which is one of the options. By default I think it should be set on rectangular marquee tool, and the one down the bottom is the freehand selection tool. You could possibly use the pen tool to also make the selection, but I personally don't really get on with the pen tool, so I won't be using it for this video. But if you are happier with the pen tool to make selections, you could use that. So once I've selected the freehand selection tool, I'm then going to click on the second icon from the left here, which is polygonal, and you can either start with new and then sort of add later, or just start on add to start with. And then it's just a case of putting the cursor along the edge of one of these glasses frames, and then slowly and in small steps just clicking around the frame like this until you get back to the start position. Now this is going to make for a very slow and boring video for you to watch me do this, So I'm going to try something which I've never done before, and that is speed up the video. So you can just see me doing this, hopefully very quickly. So I will be quiet from now on, just so this experiment will work or not. Right, now that I've got back to the start position, I'll put the cursor over the start position and double click, and it will make the selection area around that first glass lens. So as I have this on add, I can just continue on and make a selection of this second lens. So again, I will speed up the video from this point onwards. Right, I'm back to the start position, so I'll double click there. So now both those lenses are selected. Now before I do anything else, I just want to refine this selection. So I will come up to the refine button, which is up here along the top. Just wait a little while and then it will turn red, the area that's not selected. And I'm going to feather this by 2 pixels. It's easier to click and type this in rather than try and move the slider, because it's very difficult to get an exact figure, although you don't necessarily have to be exact. But I'm going to click and type 2. Now I have found that with the default settings, with the border width is set on 10%, and it does start to select, although I can't necessarily see it here, but it does start to select some of the frame outside of where I selected a bit too much. So what I did was I dropped this down to 0 and then click apply, so it is still just selecting the frame lenses. So while that is still selected, I'm going to press Ctrl and J, so that will make a layer just with those lenses on. So if I hide the bottom layer, as you can see, those lenses are all that are selected. So I'll bring that back. So what I can do now is I can press Ctrl and D to remove that selection area, because that has now been made, the selection. So I'm going to press Ctrl and 0 just to zoom back out. And now we need the image that we're going to add as a reflection. Like I said, I'm going to use this tiger image. I may keep it colour or I may make it black and white, depends on how it looks as I go along. So I'm going to come to select all, edit, and then copy, come back to my start image, and then just come to edit and paste. Then come to the move tool, and I'll just zoom out a bit so we can see the actual size of this picture is quite big, but I'm going to hold down the control key and put the cursor over the corner, and then reduce the size and keep it in proportion and make it roughly, for now, about that size. And then I'm going to press Control and 0 just to bring the image back to the size I want. So again, I'm just going to resize this so it is roughly the size of the lens. So I'm going to again hold down the control key and resize it, and I'll just rotate it, not much rotate it, but tilt it slightly to go with not too much, just a slight tilt, so it's going similar to the direction that her glasses are in. So again, I'll just hold down a control key again and just reduce this in size. Now you can always lower the opacity of this just to give you an idea of how that is fitting in the lens. Let's have it out there. Yeah, so long as the whole of the lens is sort of being filled and you're not having any bits that you're missing, yeah, I think that's okay. So I'll bring the opacity back up to 100. Now what I will do is I'm going to, once I've got that where I want it, I'm going to duplicate this layer. So I'll right click, come down to duplicate, but then I will hide that layer. What I can do is I'm going to just move it slightly over, because this is going to fill the other lens, but I will hide it for now. And then come back down to this layer here, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep this layer highlighted, but I'm going to come down to this layer here that had the just the lenses on it. I'm going to hold the control key and I'm going to sort of click on the icon, not the name but the icon. When you do that, it will bring back the selection area that we made. And then all I've got to do, because this layer is highlighted, I'm going to click on add a mask layer, and that mask layer will remove everything that's not within the selection area. Now if your particular image, it does sort of bleed over into the second lens, you could always click on the mask itself and then get white, I think, yeah, no, black, no, white and, sorry, I'm losing track of where I am, and paint over the area to take it off of the mask and delete it from the second lens. So I'm going to press Ctrl and D again to remove the selection area, and then I'm going to come up to this top layer and I'm going to make it visible again, and then I'm just going to reduce the opacity again, and then just fine tune the position. I think that's about where I want it. Bring the opacity back up again. So again, this layer is highlighted, but I'm going to come down to the lens layer, hold down the control key and click on that. And as you can see here, part of this will overlap into the other image that I've done, so I'm going to have to delete a bit here, but now I've got this layer selected, I'm going to click on mask layer, and then I can press Ctrl and D again to get rid of that selection. And as you can see, that part of that image is coming over into this lens. So I'm going to need the mask here, come to the paintbrush tool and have white as my foreground colour, and have the opacity up to 100, and no, what I should have had is black. I always get that the wrong way around. Black. as my colour, and then just paint over that to remove that bleed over into the second lens. So that is the reflections done. Now what I'm going to do now is change the blending mode of this. Now in the original Photoshop tutorial they used hard light, which here in Affinity Photo it does make it look quite dark. So the one I found personally I think worked best was glow. So I will change this blending mode for this other layer to glow as well. Now it is at this point whether you decide whether you're going to stick with sort of a colour image. Let me just see if I can, what it would look like if I'd make that black and white. First I come to layer and new adjustment layer of hue, saturation and luminance, and I drop the saturation down of that particular lens and then click merge, so that merges down into the layer below. And what I will do then is highlight the layer above. For some reason my computer is slowing down slightly, I don't know why. It's taken a while to, there we go, click and highlight on that. So I'm going to add hue, saturation, luminance adjustment and drop the opacity down on that and click merge. Right, so that is now merged into that layer, and in fact I seem to have lost the, I don't know quite how that happened, but I seem to have lost all the layers, but it doesn't matter too much because both those images are now black and white as opposed to colour, but I still have the colour back from the girl's lips. Right, and then the last thing that was in the original Photoshop tutorial was that they added a pixel layer above the top layer, and I'm still having some problems with this computer. Something's going on in the background, it's slowing things down. I haven't worked out what it is yet, I'm very sorry about this. So I've added the pixel layer and then come to the brush tool, which is already on, and select white as the colour and drop the opacity down to below 10%, but 5, 6, 7%, something like that. Hardness on 0. And then what they did was they just sort of painted into one of the corners, depending on where the light is coming from in your particular picture, just to sort of make it look like there's a bit of extra sort of blurred fuzziness and light coming from that particular direction. You don't necessarily have to add that. I don't necessarily think it really adds too much to the image. So really that is the end of the tutorial. I'm not 100% certain what happened here when I started with 2 layers and ended up with 1. But like I said, there's strange things happening on my computer at the moment. but the end result is what I was after, so I'm happy. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.